And so, as always, joining us tonight to talk about the big developments of the week, host of the WGN Political Report, Paul Lisnek. Paul, thanks for coming in tonight.
Defense threes, right? You had Rosalind Carter, Justice O'Connor, and Henry Kissinger.
Yeah, some very important figures. Before we talk more about them, let's start with Ed Burke. What have you made of the evidence presented, of the testimony here? Does it show Burke guilty of racketeering, or is it more Chicago patronage politics?
Well, it could be both, and too early to kind of make that judgment. We're still fairly early on in the trial. But the interesting thing to watch, Ray, is what you're seeing. Prosecution is doing its job. Here's the videotape. Here's Ed Burke actually saying, "Did we catch the tuna?" You know, and all this kind of stuff that we've been hearing about for so many years. And there it is. But the bottom line to it is the defense lawyers have been doing also a good job of going to those witnesses and saying, "But did you give him anything?
Yeah.
But did he get the business? But did anything actually happen? Was he proper?" And the answer to all those things are everything was fine. So the bottom line is the prosecution is trying to show the jury that this is corruption. The defense so far appears to be doing a decent job to say he didn't get anything out of this. So this is a bunch of nothing. The bottom line is it could be something the jurors ultimately say this is Chicago politics.
And we had that key piece of video and audio with did you land the tuna? That was a big one. Any other big ones that we should be expecting here?
Well, I think one of the critical, I'm not sure exactly, we don't know what the prosecution will show, but one of the things that did happen is one of the witnesses did say something like that what Ed Burke did is it's corruption, it's Chicago politics corruption, and the judge did have to order that stricken from the record. The defense lawyers made a motion for a mistrial. The judge had that brief the next morning at 7 a.m. Judge said, no, I've told the jury to disregard that information. We pulled it out of the record. Those kind of things happen in a trial, but that becomes already certainly something on appeal should the former alderman get convicted.
Okay, big week in courts. Jussie Smollett, a court upheld his conviction, so I'm wondering for him what comes next. Does he appeal?
Yeah,
Does he
so he can appeal that up to the Illinois Supreme Court, but here's the thing. His chits of required appeals are over. So the Illinois Supreme Court does not have to take this case. This was a 2-1 decision by the Illinois Supreme Court. The judge actually supporting him, you may know the name, Fredrina Lyle, right? Used to be an alderman in the city. And so she's up there and she basically said, look, he had a deal and this wasn't fair to do, but meanwhile she was on the losing side of that. So it is 2-1. So the bottom line will be he will most likely stay out of prison as he pursues the appeal, which he will do. If the Illinois Supreme Court decides not to take the case or rules against him, yeah, he goes back to that trial court and he probably finds himself back in prison.
We'll see if that lands at the state Supreme Court. Let's talk about what could end up in the U.S. Supreme Court. Illinois' assault weapons ban passed late last year and then immediately challenged. Now emergency relief going potentially to the U.S. Supreme Court.
And that's exactly what petitioners there have done. And what they've done is they've gone to the justice. Every justice is responsible for a series of circuits. We're the 7th Circuit, and Justice Amy Coney Barrett, that would have been a good trivia question for you. Justice Amy Coney Barrett is the one responsible for us. So they went to the Supreme Court, but essentially, and they said, by the way, this is an emergency. People have their rights to own guns being taken away from them. You have to act. But to date, Justice Barrett has done nothing. She could have stepped in and put a hold on or a stay on the law. She could have done a lot of things. She didn't. So it looks as though she appears to be sending this perhaps to the court. I think the court's going to have to deal with it, but it looks like she's not going to be doing anything with this alone. She's going to bring it to the court, and this may be something the court addresses in the coming weeks.
The appeals court said, no, this is not an infringement of the Second Amendment.
Well, that's why it went up, because the petitioner is going, but yes, it is. We have a right. And if Amy Coney Barrett had agreed with them, she could have stepped in immediately and put a hold on that law, could have done something. She chose not to do that.
Okay, another one that got a lot of attention, George Santos, a lot of eyes on. You never heard of him? You don't know who he is?
Who is the real George Santos?
Right.
But people really have a lot to say on this, and I'm wondering now that he's been expelled, right, what does it mean for criminal charges against him?
You know, here's the tough thing for George Santos. One of the strongest things he had going for him in terms of the upcoming federal trial that he's going to face, he could have told the feds, I'll resign. And I will agree never to run for office again. He's lost that chit. So essentially, he can no longer bargain with that. And that means he is going to go to trial. He's got nothing to bargain away anymore. As far as what happens to him, well, with regard to the House, there's nothing they can do. A lot of it is being said about he hasn't been convicted yet. And it is true. This is the first time in our nation's history that somebody has been expelled from Congress who either wasn't wearing a Confederate uniform, that was the first group of them, or wasn't convicted of federal crimes. But here, the ethics committee's report was just apparently so overwhelming that 107 Republicans also voted to expel him from Congress. This was not just a Democratic move with just a few Republicans.
I like that. Chit is the word of the day here. Donald Trump lost a couple of chits today in his court cases related to January 6th.
I'm so glad you clarified that was the word that I said.
Thought he needed it.
I'm glad you did it and I didn't have to.
Wait, what did that sound like? No, it's chit. So a couple of things have happened, including something tonight. Earlier in the day, the D.C. Court of Appeals basically said, when it comes to civil cases, former President Trump, no, you do not have presidential immunity. So these Capitol officers and other people involved, representatives, people who are currently suing President Trump over January 6th, he said, no, you can't, because everything I did as president. Today, appellate court in D.C. said, sorry, you're not immune. And so the question I was prepared to address with you, but now there's the criminal issue. Is he immune from criminal matters? Well, Judge Chutkan issued her decision just about an hour ago.
Scathing.
In which she also said, sorry, you're not a king, you're not immune, and you have to face criminal charges just like any other human being. Nobody else gets the right to avoid that.
Yes.
So that's where that stands. Now that will get appealed, and that will work through the system. But right now, those are two really powerful decisions that people may or may not agree with, but that's what the courts have done.
Some strong words from that judge, that's
Absolutely.
for sure. Okay, your show's coming up
Yes,
this
and
weekend.
so
Tell me.
Congressman Mike Quigley will join us because fresh off his visit with voting in the Santos situation, also talking about Israel with us and what's going on there. Also, News Nation's Chris Steyerwalt will join us with a little preview of the debate, which is going to be on News Nation next week. So he'll talk about that. And author Franklin Foer, you may know him. He wrote a book called The Last Politician, recently out, about the first 2 years of Joe Biden. It was like he was a fly on the wall. And we just think, there's so much concentration on former President Trump and what he's doing. Here's somebody who wrote a book about President Biden. Let's give some people some information about him. And so he'll be on the show as well. All that Sunday morning, 9 o'clock, repeating at 2:30.
Busiest man in politics.
Oh, no.
For sure, that's you. I know it.
Always
Thank
with you.
Paul.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Good
you,
to see
Paul.
you.
See you, Paul.
Happy
Have a good
weekend.